voor de review van of de rapportage over een doctoraat, een PhD, bij mevrouw Bruna da Silva. En aangezien alles in het Engels is gebeurd, zullen we het interview ook in het Engels doen. So, Bruna, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mark.
Thank you for wanting to talk to us about your PhD, which took place recently, I believe.
Yes,
The
it was.
public defense, I mean.
Yes,
Huh?
1st of April.
1st of April. That was not a joke. Now, as we will see in the interview, there's a lot of links with sports and with language. Bruna has told me that she's not a very sportive person herself, but she enjoys doing research on the linguistic aspects of it. Although you have a history with volleyball, you've told me. Bruna has an MA in applied linguistics from the University of São Leopoldo, if I pronounce that correctly, São Leopoldo, in Brazil. So it was a dual PhD with a connection between University of Ghent, where the promoter was Professor de Schrijver, and you spent a couple of months in Belgium, and then you got back to Brazil, where actually now, at this moment, you're working at the group Semantic as a researcher. So, first question to you, why did you come to Belgium in the first place to do research?
Well, here in Brazil, we have this program that allows researchers to establish connections with universities from other countries. The idea is to increase this dialogue with international institutions and, of course, to increase the quality of our work by adding new perspectives to the research we're conducting. So the idea was to go to Belgium and establish these connections with the University of Ghent. And Professor Gilles Maurice was a researcher of importance in this field of dictionary use research, lexicography. So I was interested in having some guidance from him.
Right, because I have not told the audience the title of your dissertation. I'll try to get this right. Specialized digital frame-based lexicography from the perspective of dictionary use research. So there's a couple of phrases there that maybe we are not all too familiar with. And I know that it has to do with the Olympic dictionary that you have researched, use of that. And there is also the frame semantics in which you have that you have employed. So it would be very, very nice if you could give us a rough idea in simple terms of what the subject of your dissertation was all about.
So the Olympic dictionary is a dictionary developed by Semantic from Unicinos University here in Brazil. And the purpose is to apply frame semantics to describe the words in a more contextualized way. And we did this and launched the dictionary in 2016, while the Olympic Games was hosted here in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. And the idea was to offer content thinking about this possible demand regarding this event. Some years later, we started a process of revision of this dictionary, and the objective was to see to what extent people were really accessing the dictionary, were really understanding the way this dictionary is structured, since it's a different organization. The frame-based organization is not the traditional one. Mm-hmm. So my research tried to fill this gap in terms of identifying possible ways to improve the way we develop the dictionary, the way we compile the dictionary, to understand some aspects of usage. If people were really accessing what is the biggest interest that brings people to the dictionary, and some other aspects. And of course, trying to evaluate to what extent this data that we had available, 5 years of log files, could really offer something in terms of usage. Because from log files, we don't have access to more subjective information, only aspects that are more technological, let's say. And we want to evaluate to what extent log files could contribute to this type of research, use research.
Right. So I believe there's about 3,900 words in the dictionary. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the thing is that you do not simply explain what the word is about. Things like words like in tennis or whatever, serve, or other terms. You don't simply translate, but is contextualizing a good way to define the way you approach things?
This is the purpose of frame semantics, yes. And we try to apply this. I would say that with some limitations, since the frames try to bring this context for the information we are presenting to users, but the words don't have definitions. And we see this as a problem that we're trying to correct in the future. But yes, the idea is to define words not in an isolated way, because we don't use words isolated. We use them in context, and we use words. Words are parts of groups of words. They're used together. They don't occur isolated. So the idea is to bring these words and connect them to the other words that occur in the same group of words that we call frames. So groups of words that are connected because they're used in the same context.
Yes. It's like when you learn new words to a child, you refuse to give the definition, but you show it in what context it can be used. Huh? So that's the starting point.
Yes. One aspect, right? Because let's say that a frame semantic definition would involve all these aspects, knowing in context, knowing the linguistic aspects, and all this bring an encyclopedic definition to words.
Now, how did you proceed? Because you started with your problem definition, let's say, or describing the subject of your thesis. How did you go about methodologically speaking?
My methodology was based in two parts, or was divided in two parts. And the first part was intended to evaluate the first 5 years of data we had, because we, as a group, implemented some changes in the interface of our dictionary in August last year. So I tried to divide these two moments of data and try to evaluate to what extent this changes in interface would affect the data. So I have a first part where I use the data from the log files to see what are the pages that users search the most, what are the sports, from where the searches are coming, what countries, based on the IP addresses, the time that people usually spend in the dictionary, for how long they stay in the dictionary, and information like that. And for the second part, I try to do the same and then compare these different results and see if people were keeping the same behavior or if they were changing the behavior. in general terms, it was possible to see that people were behaving the same way, except for some small changes that were consequences of. We implemented, for example, a button that could be accessed from all pages of the dictionary, that we were trying to encourage people to send messages to establish some sort of dialogue with us and tell us how we could improve the dictionaries. And we saw the consequences of this button as a increase from like 18%, if I'm not mistaken, of all access to this page in the first part of the data to 68% in the second part of data. So it's very increase, the access increase considerably. And also we saw that in the second part of the second set of data, people start looking at this explanations, how the dictionary works, about the dictionary, and how to use, they started accessing less. So it could be a sign that the structure, the interface became clearer, and people didn't feel the need to go to these pages anymore. It's a possible interpretation, but of course, log files have some limitations in terms of giving us 100%. The answer is not 100%. We have some limitations that could be compensated with qualitative methods, for example. So this research has some things that could be complemented in the future.
Right. Now, am I right in thinking, assuming that, supposing I'm planning to make a digital dictionary on cats or dogs or animals, for example, I could profit from your PhD dissertation by transferring the methodology or the approach to my project. Is that correct?
Well, my methodology is for researching the use of the dictionary. So you could use this methodology for this purpose. But I have a chapter where I will evaluate, I'll discuss the process of compilation of our dictionary and to what extent we could, this research on the use revealed some problems in terms of how we apply the notion of frames to the compilation of the dictionary. So I believe you could use this chapter to have some insights on how to start and what mistakes to avoid, what things you could replicate, and what things you could, develop a little bit differently.
Do you see any other fields of dissemination of the knowledge that you have gathered through this PhD?
More directly, I think we have contributions to the work that the research group has been developing for years, which is the compilation of frame-based dictionaries. So the research brings a lot of answers, confirms a lot of the insights that we already had, and helps us to improve the way we're working with dictionaries. But another contribution I see is the discussion about how to implement this type of methodology based on log files to evaluate dictionaries. So I feel like there's a lot of discussions on what are the limitations, and the log files don't really give us a lot of insight on what is the context in which people are using dictionaries, and this is a problem. But I had the feeling that in my research, when connected to a feasible objective, when the objectives are clear and connected to what the method can offer, it's possible to see good results. So I feel like this research also shows how log files can be an effective method for evaluating the use of dictionaries in certain circumstances and not for other circumstances. So we have to evaluate to what extent this method is adequate or not to our purposes.
Right. Now, Bruna, finally, moving away from the subject of your study, now that you've been in this process of writing a PhD for how many years? 4 or 5 years? Something like that?
4 years.
4 years?
Yes.
What sort of advice do you have to anyone thinking of writing a doctoral dissertation, apart from the advice, the usual advice like sleep less and work more? Huh?
Well,
So what are the usual pitfalls that they may encounter?
I can only speak from my own experience, and I would say that from a Brazilian perspective, I would say that reading and being updated is it's very important. You have to read, you have to know your field. Without knowing the most important authors and what is going on the field of research, you will not do a good job. And it's not like knowing what you like, it's knowing everything. But also, I would say that going to Belgium was very, very important to me because it changed my life. And I always say that because it really did bring me, it taught me a lot in terms of methodology, in terms of cultural differences when we're talking about research. So I would say that if you want, from a Brazilian perspective, if you want to really make the most of this experience, try to go abroad and combine different perspectives and establish dialogue between different groups of research. So I feel like this is very important, and it definitely changed the path, the ways in which my research was going for a better, for the better. So I think that is very crucial.
Could you pinpoint one particular cultural difference that you encountered comparing Brazilian university to Belgian university?
Oh my God, that's I don't. Between the universities.
Right.
I don't know, because I was not there for a long time, and I experienced not so much in terms of classes. I was more working directly with my advisor. So I don't know if I had enough experience in the university to establish this comparison. But yeah,
Brazilians will be warmer, I suppose.
Yeah, if you're talking about cultural, then, but I don't feel like I didn't feel like people were not being warm with me. Quite on the contrary, I was able to meet some people that would speak Portuguese in Belgium, and that was very unexpected. And so people that have been in Brazil, and I was very surprised. So people are really nice, and I have no bad experience. I'm always afraid to leave. I think this is a natural fear for being from Latin America, and this fear of being mistreated. Their stories, but that didn't happen. So my experience was really nice, really good.
What are your plans for the future?
Well, I am leaving the country in the next months because of my partner is a international teacher, so I'll have to follow him at the beginning and then establish possibilities for my future. But I'm definitely interested in trying something in continuing this as publishing papers. This is my first goal right now, to publish and then to try something in terms of university, like university related, you know, working in another research group maybe, I don't know. I still have to plan it better because things are not so so well defined right now in the entire world, I would say, because of COVID really made things complicated. But I would say that for now, I'll focus on publishing.
Good. Anyhow, the whole world is waiting for you, Dr. Da Silva, and you're always very, very welcome in Belgium, and certainly in
Thank
Ghent.
you. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you very much for this chat, and all the best for your future undertakings.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity.
You're very welcome. Goodbye.
Goodbye.